those resources. Also, as we're getting started, we'll be utilizing the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, or on the bottom of the screen. So go ahead, and as soon as you have questions, you can go ahead and start putting those in right away. And I will say, let's go ahead and get started. Folks are coming in. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Again, welcome to this, what is this month? October's Answers from an Actuary. I am super excited. We have Alex Santiago here to discuss part 2 of our series on mentoring and networking. I am super excited. Like I said, go ahead and feel free to put those questions in the Q&A box as you have them. And I will turn it over to Alex to introduce himself.
Awesome. Thank you, Brianna. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Santiago. I am an actuary, and I'm a fellow of the Society of Actuaries. I obtained my fellowship in 2022, and I'm a member of the American Academy of Actuaries. And I think I got that set up in 2018 after I got my ASA. I currently work for Prosperity Life. I'm an annuity pricing actuary. And for about my career has been about 9-10 years, and I've been on the annuity pricing and product development side of things, and that's where my expertise is. I've worked at 2 companies doing similar work. My journey as an actuary, so like many of you who've maybe heard about it in college, I actually did a math degree and focus in actuarial science. I graduated from UT Austin's program. And got an internship while I was in school there, and then was hired full-time on afterwards, where I started, my career. I had graduated with 3 exams, and then just kind of worked my way through. And yeah, as far as like more volunteer type of work, I do work with MentorLink. I think that's a very good forum for students to meet an actuary who's been in the field for some time. I've worked with 4 students, and I think it's been a great resource for them and for me. I think if something like this was around when I was in college, it's something I would have wanted to use for sure, because it exposes you to what the field is. And then a lot of y'all, I imagine y'all are going to have some questions, but working with a mentor to kind of work through those questions is also very valuable. So I really like the topic for today's discussion. I also am on the executive committee for the Actuaries Club of the Southwest, which is a regional actuarial group. We meet twice a year to basically host meetings where we have presentations for continuing education. And yeah, I think that about covers that. A little bit about myself.
Thank you. I'm trying to get the SOA Explorer page where folks can find actuarial clubs and drop that link. But we do have a few questions. So Alex, what are some things that this person should think about when considering finding a good fit in terms of an area of actuary science to specialize in a company that will be a good fit?
Sure. I think it's going to be a lot of it is going to be learning while you're doing. But if you have ideas about things that you are interested in, like for example, I'm in the more of the product development side of the house, where we're working with marketing and other sides of the company to bring products to life essentially. And that's something that's been a passion of mine during my career. But I didn't really find that out until I interned and kind of figured I do like the product side of things. So I would say, try to get some work experience. Apply for internships, even if you're maybe a career switcher. I think applying for internships could be, even great for that scenario, where you can learn about what it is to be an actuary, what actuaries do, and then talk with folks in the field. Like we talked about, MentorLink, I think can be a great resource, and also just reaching out to other folks in the actuary field to understand what it is they do. So, I kind of label myself as a pricing and product actuary, but over time, you'll wear different hats as an actuary. You might be doing more financial reporting. You might be on the product side. You might be a little bit higher level, like the corporate ERM type of structure. Um, and so just, take those opportunities as they come to work on different projects or different roles to understand what it is you do like. Um, yeah, I think experience is really going to help you figure that out.
Thank you so much. So
Mhm.
that feeds into our next question. There's a little bit of background with this one, so I'll just summarize that. This person is an aspiring actuary from India with a master's in actuarial science, and they're moving to Canada soon. So there's like 5 questions here, so I'll just start with the first one. First of all, what steps would you recommend to land my first job or internship? If you want to
Mhm.
just follow up with what you were speaking about before, that would be great.
Sure. I think the important thing and the good thing about the actuarial career is that it's pretty straightforward in terms of the steps that you need to take to become an actuary to get hired as an actuary. You really need you need a bachelor's degree and which you have a master's, which is great. And then you need to pass exams. So I don't know if you've already taken some exams or if you're studying for some exams right now. Um, I can't speak specifically to Canada and what hiring is like there, but I imagine it's similar. Try to pass an exam or two, and then just begin applying for internships and full-time positions. And if you get interviews, that'll be a good thing. That means that your resume is strong enough, and then interviewing is a separate skill. But yeah, it really does require you passing some exams. If you have any relevant work experience that you can speak of, whether it's more of a technical type of background or data or financial, that's going to be positive for you as well. Um, and if not, if you don't have anything that tailored or specific, I think, for entry level actuaries, we are looking for someone who, has that technical smarts, is able to pass exams, able to do the work. But we're also looking for someone who can be a team player and that we're going to enjoy working with and that we think can be coachable, can learn. So I think, especially as you get to the interview steps, being able to speak to that is going to be really important because that is what we're looking for when we're hiring new actuaries.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
The second part of this person's query is specifically about networking. So
Mhm.
I want to break this question up into two different parts. So first of all, first question I'll ask are, what are your specific strategies for building a professional network in person? And then
Mhm.
are there any platforms? So when they say platform, I assume something online
Mhm.
that can focus on networking. If you can answer that, please.
Sure. I think as actuaries, a lot of us are introverted. Not all of us, but I think that kind of tends to be true more often than not. And so I think networking isn't for some of us, it's not a natural strength, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is you're building one-on-one connections with people. Um, as an entry level actuary, what I would encourage is just through your own network, just meeting actuaries if you can. I think that might be challenging. I don't think I had any actuaries in my network. Um, but I'll tell you probably the easy thing right now is SOA's mentor link. And I've mentioned that a couple of times, but I seriously think that can be great if you are looking to talk with an actuary and learn a little bit more. It's a list of actuaries on the site who are eager to talk with actuaries who are just getting into their career and to offer that advice. Um, and then in general, like whenever you get into the next stages of your career, um, and I think you've got to balance your priorities, like working through exams, you've got a family life and whatnot. But volunteering is a really good way to network. I mentioned that I work with the Actuaries Club of the Southwest, and just offering to volunteer. The SOA has a lot of volunteering opportunities as well. Um, that's huge because then you've got a lot of like-minded folks who are kind of working on tasks. You build that relationship together, and then if there is an in-person aspect to some of these events, you'll be meeting people, and it's a great way. You're there for a purpose, and it's a great way to meet other folks as well. Um, and then in your company. once you land a job and you're working in your company, it's important to network within your company. I don't know if people think, I'm sure people do think about it that way. It might be a little bit different thinking about networking within folks within your team or, within different parts of the organization. But that actually might be even more important types of networking. Um, you may not know who in your company is what problems they have and what they're working on. If they're doing anything similar to what you're doing, if you can help them, they can help you, vice versa. Um, so I think being proactive is the big thing, number one. Whether it's reaching out on MentorLink or volunteering or reaching out to someone within your company, um, you need to take the initiative to make it happen. It really isn't going to happen without that.
Thank you so much. I just threw a couple of links in the chat while Alex was speaking. So I did want to point out our upcoming in-person and virtual events. As I said, the next Candidate Connect is actually on Monday in somewhere in Maryland, I think, National Harbor, Maryland, I believe it is. I couldn't remember the exact space. So if you are in the DMV area in the United States and you're looking for something for Monday, I can get in contact with you for that. But otherwise, keep an eye on that page for upcoming opportunities. I also dropped the link for SOA volunteer opportunities that Alex was talking about. And I know for a fact that there are some specific opportunities for candidates. A lot of those are virtual. So if you're interested in that, those opportunities are typically labeled Gather Voices. And that is how you'll know that I'm sorry, and there is a tab on there that says it's available for candidates. That is how you can find those opportunities. So many words. I apologize. Okay, folks, keep on putting your questions in the Q&A box. We just literally got another one. As I said, that great. Can you speak more about getting an internship if you're a career switcher? Most seem to be geared towards undergrads. Also, thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And it's maybe not as uncommon as you think. Career switchers do, there's no reason why you can't apply for an internship. They write up those job descriptions or whatever, kind of geared towards college students because that's who primarily, do end up filling the roles. But there's no reason why a company would not consider someone who's a career switcher. I mean, from my perspective, I view it as a potential positive. I've, you know, it's nice to know that you are hiring someone who has some work experience at least. Um, Something that is understated in the actual profession is some of those soft skills. So even if you come from a different background, I know a lot of actuaries who come from like teaching a profession, and that they have there's a lot of skills that they build up in teaching, and so I would just apply, basically. I would apply to internships. I would apply to entry level roles. Um, work through exams, of course, because that's really going to be the big thing that will be a knockout for you if you don't have that. But I would offer very similar advice for someone who's career switching versus a college student looking for an internship the first time. Pass exams. Try to think about relevant work experience that you have to be able to speak to show that you would be a good fit for the role. Ask engaging questions in the interview process to understand, demonstrate interest in the company, but also to learn about the company to understand if it's a place that you want to work. So I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. I'll also add anecdotally that I've spoken to some career switchers who have said that um, they have applied for internships, but once the hiring managers see their credentials, they actually interview them and offer them full-time roles instead of internships. So I have had that happen before where you think you're applying for an internship, they say, you already have the skills that we're looking for, a lot of those soft skills, a lot of those transferable skills. We'll hire you on as an analyst instead of that internship, which is a win-win for everyone, I think.
Oh yeah, I really like that. If you think about an internship program, the goal typically is to, have a like a pipeline of potential people to hire on. It's also a little bit of a trial for the company too, and for the person who's being who's filling the role. And if you are ready to work right as your internship ends, then that might be a best case scenario. So, it's definitely explore internships for sure.
Thank you. Would you recommend having multiple mentors on MentorLink?
There's no reason why not. I can't think of any cons. In general, in your career, you will want to take on multiple mentors. So I think that's a good question to ask and a good thing to think about. You can take on a mentor and just think of them as an actuary, but anyone that you take on as a mentor is just going to be an individual person with a set of strengths and weaknesses. And depending on what you're looking to build up and what you want your future to be, take on those mentors. This actually has me thinking, in my career, it's been really important for me to take on non-actuary mentors, as well as actuary mentors. Um, I've worked with like a marketing guy who's like very advanced in his field, because my passion has been in product development. And when you're developing products as an actuary, oftentimes you're kind of sitting in your cubicle in your office, and you're building your models, your projections, you're doing, sending a lot of emails, you're building, pricing reports and analysis. There's more to it, but you don't always get that full perspective, especially of the client experience. But your sales guys and your marketing guys, they're going to be closer to that. And they're going to be hearing feedback from agents or from clients. And so hearing their perspective on product and what's going to be successful, and even how to navigate, a workplace in general. Take on mentors who have skills that you want to emulate. Um, so definitely worth having conversations with multiple folks on mentor. I don't think the SWA charges for mentors, right? Yeah, so that's definitely is a good idea.
Thank you so much. And talking about mentoring is one of my own personal passions.
Mhm.
So what you said has me thinking as well. How do you ask someone to be your mentor?
Well, it's interesting because a mentorship can be so many things. A mentorship can be, a single exploratory call. It can be a recurring conversation every week or every month or something like that. Um, and I guess the short answer is, um, I would start by asking genuine questions of things that you want to learn. It helps if, um, you start off the conversation with, there's something I want to learn about X. I see that you have knowledge or experience there. Would you be open to, having a 30-minute call to talk about that? Um, and I think that's kind of a harmless way to start a conversation. Um, if you can always ask for follow-up, and I think if uh, it should be a mutual kind of decision if someone wants to kind of continue that as a recurring thing. But you can always ask. Um, but I think it might be easiest if you have something very specific that you want to talk about and you want to learn about first.
Thank you so much. That is so helpful. Okay. How many exams would you need in order to get an entry-level actuarial job? This person graduated in May with one internship and they passed FM and are taking P soon.
That's excellent. I think that's a very strong start. Um, I would say an exam and an internship is really good for beginning to apply for entry level jobs. I'd say go ahead and do it. As far as number of exams, it's going to be easier the more you have. I think you hear more about folks being hired with 1 to 3 exams. Um, and that's pretty common, but I think an internship is something that's going to help a lot with. But I wouldn't shy away from passing more exams. Actually, the more you can get done sooner, you're just going to be thanking yourself later. So, um, if you can, make sure you have the time to actually dedicate to studying. Um, but just keep working through them as quickly as you can because, you know, life may get more challenging. You might have more responsibilities, more priorities that come up, and um, just as those priorities start to compete, it becomes more challenging. So definitely work through them uh, when you can.
Thank you. What are your favorite things about being an actuary?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I think there's a lot of things. As an analytical type of person, I think it's a pretty rewarding career. You're working on big problems that are pretty complex, and you're working with teams. You're working with teams of actuaries, non-actuaries to kind of figure out these problems. And ultimately, the actuary, for an insurance company or whatever industry you're working in as an actuary, the information that you're putting together really matters. We're really the ones who understand the science and the math that actually backs insurance or pension liabilities or wherever you're working in. Um, and so it's really a very respected profession in the industry. Um, and in terms of what you want to do with that, through your career, there's a lot of opportunity. Um, Actuaries can rise up and be very high up leaders in a company. But you can also kind of find niches that maybe aren't, leadership necessarily and build a very strong career being like, someone who's very well knowledgeable about product or process or even, certain aspects of programming. So for myself, I really love the product side of things and watching an idea and a product come to life, um, and being feeling like an integral part of that. I think also something that anyone in basically any other career is jealous of when we share about being an actuary. It's really interesting because as an actuary, the education process, working through exams, is very clear cut. That part of your career is. And you can also expect like pay increases as you work through exams and pass through exams. Most companies you'll work for will have something called a student program, maybe a variation of that name that basically spells out if you pass this exam, you're going to get a permanent salary increase, and you're going to have on the job study time to help support you as well. It's hard to find careers that actually really spell it out that way and will reward you for that progress. So um, it's pretty uncommon. I think that's a really, a great thing about the profession.
Thank you so much. All right, we've got a few questions about technical skills that folks should focus on, specifically what technical skills and what programming languages.
Sure. Um, So I think if you think about what an actuary does day in and day out, we may be working in actuarial specific modeling software. That's going to be very challenging to get experience in as especially as a student because that's very, you know, companies you're just going to see that as working as an actuary, but um, I think any type of programming language or statistical language is going to be helpful more and more. I think in the actuary profession, we use Excel a lot. So understanding the Microsoft suite of products and specifically Excel, um, learning how to use that is going to help give you a step up before you join the career. Um, we also, it's in addition to work experience, something that is kind of related to technical skills is, um, there are some universities that offer case studies. If you can get involved in something like that, these case studies will basically it'll define an insurance problem usually and the actuarial work required and have you work through them. Um, and we'll give you techniques to kind of work through that, and you'll be learning basically techniques, how to work in Excel, how to work with a team, how to build a presentation. So that's a way to build up some of those skills without even needing an internship or on the job experience. So anything that can kind of and I guess it doesn't even have to be an actuarial case study. I know that software and coding case studies are probably way more common, and I think projects like that will help you understand how to work through technical problems like an actuary would.
Thank you so much. Our next question is directly about projects. So, do hiring managers care about projects on your resume in this profession? If so, what do you look for in a good project?
Interesting. Yeah, I'd be curious to. I think you might have something in mind when you're thinking about projects, but I think the important thing to think about is when you're in an interview setting, does that project help you speak to what you bring to the table for the job at the end of the day? If your project is something like a case study where you worked with a team and there was some technical aspects to it as well, that's great. I think you definitely should talk about that. Um, if it is something that's like a little bit more solo, I think it can be valuable to talk about, especially if you use some sort of like technical software or approach, and it can kind of demonstrate, maybe an interest in the actuary profession, or into like honing your technical skills even more. Group projects in school in general can also be good to talk about. So think about how can it contribute on the technical side of things as well as the soft skills, teamwork, communication side of things. And if it's something that that it will help you speak to that, then I think sure that's excellent.
Thank you for answering that.
Mhm.
Okay. So this person is currently in tutoring and teaching, but looking to take exam P this November with plans for FM later. Do you think having passed only one exam will be fine when applying for roles?
The way I think about it is the more you build up your resume, the higher percentage chance you'll get the opportunity to interview. And then, also percentage chance of getting the job. So would it be time to begin like applying for jobs or internships? There's no reason why you shouldn't. It's going to be kind of a balance of how you want to prioritize your time. It might be with one exam, it's 10%, and then with two exams, you're bumped up to 20%, per, that's I don't know what the percentages would actually be, but um the more you add to your resume, just the stronger case you're going to have, and the easier time you're going to have to actually, you know, land an interview, and a job as well.
Thank you so much. I apologize for the appearance of my cat. She's being a menace, so she's on my lap for right now. Okay, our next question is there a limit to how many exams you should take before getting an internship or a job?
That's a funny question. I remember when I was a college student, people were thinking about that. And I have heard actuaries say, I might be a little bit concerned with hiring someone maybe at the expected pay grade, of someone who's maybe already passed 5 exams, but they have no work experience. Um, I really wouldn't limit yourself because of that. If you can get through exams quickly, that's going to save you time in your career later on. Um, I personally don't believe that should be an inhibitor at all. That's my personal view. Other folks may think about it a little bit differently, and maybe in certain actuarial jobs that becomes, important for some reason. But to me, it shows that you can dedicate your time to passing exams. You are clearly capable of doing it. If you can pass a bunch of exams, um, I'd say go for it.
Thank you so much. All right. This person is an aspiring actuary with a degree in stats and they've passed P and FM. Um,
Hmm.
because of their lack of relevant work experience, they believe that is what is inhibiting them from getting their first entry level position. They tried to
Hmm.
improve their resume by adding technical projects with Excel and VBA. What else do you think that they could add on their resume for them to stand out?
Sure. So, I'm kind of curious, like, are you getting interviews or are you not getting interviews? Because it could be different answers. If you are getting interviews, that means that your resume itself is kind of strong enough that they'll consider you for the role. And that's good to know. And if you're getting a bunch of resumes and there's a bunch of rejections, which was told like my experience getting entry level job, I interviewed and applied for a bunch of places, got rejected a bunch, did get the yes at some point. So don't feel discouraged if you do get rejected for roles. Just want to put that out there. But um, I think it could be worth going through mock interviews to get some feedback from someone to tell you, these are the holes that you have. I think that could be very valuable to do. That could be something you could do with a mentor link. Um, but if the problem is that you're not getting interviews at all, then yeah, I think what you should consider is looking for um, maybe work experience that's adjacent to being an actuary or is just, technical to some degree. Um, looking for like analyst type of roles where you are going to be, working in Excel or on systems or using some programming language. You could get an insurance job, and maybe it's not exactly, related to being an actuary, but then you learn about the industry, and then you can pivot that into some sort of connection within the company potentially, and land a job that way. Yes, those projects like VBA type of projects can be good. But it could be work experience, it could be projects. But think about like where are you getting tripped up? Are you getting interviews or not? And just kind of figuring out where to fill that in.
Thank you. And I will also add, as I keep plugging the affiliate membership as well as MentorLink, there are some e-learning modules that we have on our through the affiliate membership that you can use. It's all about building a resume. What is a good resume for the actuarial profession look like? What are interview tips for interviewing for this job? I think the mock interview suggestion is a great one, and that's a great way to utilize a mentor through MentorLink. So all of these things I think will really help folks. I just lost the question. Another question, out of order that we have is what other job experience would improve the chances of landing an internship or entry level position? If you have any other suggestions there.
Um, so specifically, hmm, what the way I would think about it, I don't know if I would say there's any job specifically that's going to be, really be the best fit. I think what you should think about in terms of picking out a job like that is, are you going to be developing some technical skills like an actuary will, or that you will need as an actuary? Um, so, working on, like I mentioned previously, like, are you going to be working in some sort of like either, programming or software language, working in Excel, to learn a little bit about that. There's also working in the insurance industry in general, I think can be beneficial. But any job, you have the ability to develop the soft skill aspect of things. So, and especially with teamwork and completing projects, I think you can really cultivate in any type of role or job. So, um, I guess I wouldn't say that I have any specific jobs that are adjacent to an actuary that you should consider, but think about how will this job contribute to building my resume to get that first actuarial position.
Thank you. All right, so this next question, someone is currently not able to move for a position. Do you think
Mm.
it's possible to land a remote internship or entry level job?
It is becoming more and more challenging as time goes on. I think companies are starting to value a little bit more having interns and more junior folks in the office and senior folks as well, actually. Um, I think they're out there. It's just that the numbers are going to be smaller when you limit the what you're looking for remote only. Um, I think there's a lot to learn being in the office, especially starting out your career. Just understanding how to work in the workplace, meeting folks on different teams organically versus remotely. Um, I know there's folks who have a lot of opinions about that, but it may be a little bit more challenging. Um, but yeah, I mean it's if you see them, it's definitely worth applying.
Thank you so much. Let's see. Does this person still have an opportunity to get an internship if they haven't passed any exams yet?
So the answer is always yes. There's always a chance. You may need to leverage other things like your network a little bit more to really make that happen. I think reaching out to actuaries, um, I think having those connections who can help be an advocate for you is going to be is what's going to help you in that kind of situation. Of course, I would encourage passing exams. I think you'll be competing with folks who do have exams, but sometimes you do get lucky. Um, and you definitely do hear about it sometimes that folks, come in entry level or as an intern with no exams. It's not the norm, but it definitely does happen. Um, but you're just gonna have to work a little bit harder to get your foot in the door and to actually get someone to pay attention to you. Because think as a hiring manager, you might be working with an HR partner or a recruiter on some of this work. And you might just tell them like, hey, we're just looking for folks with one or two exams. And those are the resumes that I want to see. And so you will very often just get filtered out from the get-go. Not everyone's going to do that. And it just, going back to it, it's really a percentage game. Like the more experience and the more exams you have, the more you're going to raise your percentage of actually landing an interview and a job. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but it can be done.
I will add two things onto that as well. If you have sat for an exam and failed that exam, that is different also than just not having taken an exam yet. So if you've already sat for an exam, I would say, I've already sat, I have my next exam sitting, or if you've already registered to sit for an exam.
Mhm.
That shows that you are committed to the profession and that you're being proactive and taking those steps to start the credentialing process.
Sure.
I'll also say another option is find in-person recruiting events so that you can actually speak face to face to some of these recruiters instead
Mhm.
of just submitting a resume. I know that a lot of college students that I work with get their first internships through a lot of these, like either recruiters coming to their campus or just career fairs. If you are in the United States or Canada, you have a Gamma Iota Sigma chapter on your campus, or if you're in Canada and you have ASNA, those are two great places to look for those um, oh my gosh, career fair events and those recruiting events.
Totally agree.
Alex, what were your primary considerations when choosing between life and casualty?
Oh, like exams and all that. Um, what I hear from, because this is something I thought about, before I had experience. What you often see is that the route you end up going is where you get hired. Just to be perfectly honest, I think there is a lot of good opportunity on both sides. I know actuaries on both sides, um, and they're all working on really interesting challenges. And it is a little bit different. Um, the best way would be, if you could get some experience. If you do have an interest in a particular field, really focus on that and try to connect with folks in that field. um, but definitely focus on the exams that are some cross-pollination between both. I think that's P and FN might be the only two at this point. But Focus on those. Um, and trying to think if I have any other advice there. Yeah, I mean, if there's any way to get some exposure, I've seen case studies where you kind of learn about, one particular industry versus another. And so you can kind of learn a little bit about like, what is the data level? Because, well, here's one thing. So with the casualty actuaries, they are, um, especially compared to life and annuities where I work, there's just a ton of data on the casualty side. Um, and so the type of work they do, I think there's a little bit more statistical modeling. There may be a little bit more leveraging of AI at this point for certain solutions. There is some of that in the life annuity industry. There is a lot of data that you work with in the life and annuity industry, but it's just at a different level. Um, and so it's going to be a different type of skill. With life insurance and annuities, you're really, these contracts are, they could be 5, 10, 20, 30 years long or an entire lifetime. And then on the property and casualty side, it's basically a 1 year contract typically. I'm sure there's variability to that, but they're shorter term. So on the life and annuity side, you're determining your product, and then you have that contract for potentially someone's lifetime. And maybe there are some levers you can change along the way, but you're living with that risk. Whereas with the property and casualty side, things are changing very quickly, and um, the contracts or the insurance is basically like maybe a 1 year term is changing each year. So you're tweaking and modifying a lot faster is what it seems like. Um, so yeah, I hope that helps.
Thank you so much. Folks, we are getting close to only having 15 minutes left. And so I'm going to leave the Q&A box open for like 1 more minute. So if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and get those in now. Our next question is, someone's been studying for exam P. They've done all the learning modules, but they are having problems with the practice problems. So
Okay.
will continuing to do practice problems and going over solutions eventually tip over into easier than harder? They're worried about investing more time into studying and not seeing results.
Yeah. No, I think that is a big challenge, and I think that can be discouraging. But here's my approach to studying for exams. Essentially, you've got a syllabus, you've got this knowledge base that you really need to understand very well by exam time, maybe master, a lot of the stuff. And so what you need to do is definitely go through all the material and learn it, at least to some percentage. Um, where practice problems really come in is once you've learned the material, and along the way, maybe gone back to some material that was a challenge for you. Um, the practice problems, the way I think about it is you're just trying to find your knowledge gaps. And so if you're finding that you take, some practice problems, like you take 5 practice problems, you fail all of them and you're very confused. Well, you just identified what you need to go back and work through. You can only work on one thing at a time. It might be overwhelming, just the amount of things that you see that you need to go through. And studying for these exams do take time. Or does take time. So I think you need to build that expectation early on that you're going to need a runway of several months to pass one of these exams so that you're well prepared. But if you encounter a problem, or you're multiple problems with similar aspects to them, that means you need to basically stop, go and learn what's going on there, and and then that will help your progress to being ready for the exam. So practice problems really should be for it is for like self-assessment, but it's for identifying those gaps.
Thank you so much. Once I ask the next question, I'm gonna go find, we have a lot of practice problems and solutions as well as
Yeah.
past exams and solutions on our website. Gonna go find those links in just a second and I'll post them. Our next question is about Excel. So what are the things that actuaries should know in Excel to show that they're proficient?
Sure. So a lot of this stuff, it's there's a lot you're just going to have to learn on the job. You're going to have specific problems that you're working for. You're going to get all the data just really when you're working. Um, but knowing how to use like some of these basic Excel functions like um, or maybe basic slash intermediate or advanced. I know there are a lot of resources online that kind of tell you just like, here are the steps you need to learn in Excel, from the basic, kind of algebraic type of functions to data manipulation, data aggregation, um, and then pivot tables, VBA, and the more you kind of build up from the basic building blocks all the way down to the more advanced pieces, that's all going to be great for you.
Thank you so much. And perfect time. I just found those links and dropped them in the chat for folks.
You've got
Okay.
all the links. That's awesome.
I'm trying to I have my doubles monitors. That's what I'm trying to do at the same time. Okay. So, this person is asking how many exams and internship experience do they need to pass and have in order to be an entry-level actuarial analyst?
So the big thing is just the more the merrier. Like I've been talking a little bit about, you can, if you get very, very lucky, you can have no experience and no exams. I wouldn't count on that though. That's not something you'd be able to predict on, but technically maybe that could work out. Um, I would just think about it again as like the more that you add to your resume, the more exams that you pass, the higher chance of success you'll have in actually landing an interview and eventually a job. Um, so, there's a lot of experience you can work on to kind of add and build your resume. Exams are very important, work experience, even volunteer experience or something like that, where you can kind of speak to some, maybe teamwork or whatever to speak to what you can bring to the table and why you would be a good person to hire. Um, that's all going to be important.
Thank you so much. Oh, never mind. Okay. I was reading a question and then it cut off, but they resubmitted the question. Okay. I'll get back to that in a second. Okay. Hi, Alex. I'm curious, how has the knowledge and mindset you've developed as an actuary impacted other areas of your life? Has it sparked new interests in fields you didn't expect to explore? And how do you see the skills you've gained in the profession translating to other fields or roles?
That's a really interesting question. So I think working as an actuary has its practical uses. I think um, for my life, it's like for the hard skills and the soft skills, they translate. You are working in a business environment, trying to, you're working with other folks with different personalities, different roles, and different temperaments, and um, I think in general that's good because you have to really build up a lot of your communication skills over time, which is really useful for any aspect of your life that you're interested in. Um, some of the technical things, it's like, um, you know, I guess you're used to using numbers and you can really translate that um, uh, to other aspects of your life, whether it's like, personal finance or, if you're volunteering at an organization and they need someone who does have some of those skills, like you're going to be able to help think through how to analyze like a number or financial type of problem, potentially that's, a leg up. Um, and then in terms of what it can translate to other things, um, it's interesting because being an actuary, there are these core skills and that we all use, but for your career, you can kind of take it in different directions. Um, you can lean into the more like software programming side of things. You can lean into the more like the relational side of things. I know in consulting, there are a lot of actuaries who they're not really doing a lot of the Excel or technical work. They're more relationship managers, but they do have to understand and have worked through some of that stuff in the past. Um, and then, with some of my volunteer work, it's very different. Like event planning is a completely different set of skills. So um, I think being an actuary can help empower you to work in different directions and in the career to kind of figure out what are your passions and what do you want to lean into a little bit more. Um, so that's some of my thoughts on that. Interesting question.
Thank you so much. That's also not a question that I've seen asked before. So thank you, anonymous attendee, for asking. Okay, back to the question that was not finished before, but now it's finished. So this
Okay.
person is a third year math student, and they recently switched to become an actuary. They just
Okay.
tried taking FM, they failed. So first question, is it common to fail exams? And second question, well, I guess not the second question. The question is it typical to fail exams? But I think also, um, how can you motivate yourself? I also want to say just before you answer, this person said
Sure.
uh they said that FM's the easiest exam. I would say just because it's the first exam you can take, one of the first two exams you can take, that does not mean it's the easiest exam. I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
clarify that as well, just because it's first.
So the first answer is it is very common to fail exams, and that is part of the process. Most actuaries will have failed exams on their path to becoming an associate or a fellow. It's very normal. It feels discouraging when that happens, but and it just sucks because you've put in a lot of time and you didn't get the result you were looking for. Um, I guess just recognize that that is going to be part of the journey, and you're definitely not alone. It's very common. I think the important thing is to recognize that you'll have to pick yourself back up and try again, and also recognize that taking an exam the second time, you're still going to need to dedicate a significant amount of time to studying so that you can pass the exam. You might think like, well, I passed or I failed, but I got a 3 or 4. I've seen folks, and for me as well, I failed exams. I've needed that whole next, 3, 4 months or whatever to really, get that knowledge down and maybe some things I had forgotten along the way. Because there is that kind of crunch at the end where knowledge is kind of falling out of your head right after the exam, and so you kind of need to pick that back up. Um, so I think it's great that you've passed an exam. I think they said they passed an exam. Oh, no, they did not pass an exam. I think that's okay. Whether or not you pass an exam or not, I think it's the same thing for anyone. I've known actuaries who have failed their first exam, and I think that can be very, like, particularly discouraging passing on your first attempt because you're kind of wondering at that point, can I even do this? And the answer is you definitely can. And I've recently worked with an actuary on MentorLink where he was working through an exam and didn't pass on his first time, but he did pass. And I think a lot of us just need um, just a little bit of encouragement, and you also just need to dedicate the time. You can do it, but it is going to take the time.
Thank you. And I also should have added, you don't have to take FM first. You can also take P first. So if
Yeah.
probability, and this person said that they don't have a lot of financial mathematics experience, you can take probability first as well. All right, we have one last question, and I think it's perfect to end on. Once
Mhm.
you build a network, how do you maintain it?
Oh, interesting. A network's kind of interesting because it is like a bunch of I think I mentioned at the beginning of this, it's one-on-one relationships that you have with people. So just like any friendship that you have, the more time you spend with it and prioritize it, the more you're gonna, cultivate that relationship. Um, but the truth is too that when you make a professional develop a professional relationship, what's going to happen is people are going to leave companies, they're going to go somewhere else, and that's going to happen. You're not going to be talking with them as much. Stay connected with them on LinkedIn, have their contact information. You can always reach out to someone that you talked with 5, 10 years ago or what have you. and just pick their brain about something or just ask to connect. Like there's no reason why you can't do that. Um, yeah, I think the thing that probably is important with networking is, trying to find those people who are either like-minded in terms of what they're trying to do with their career, or maybe are just people that you could aspire to, and just, it's really all about reaching out and prioritizing, spending time doing that.
Amazing. Alex, thank you so much. This was such a wonderful session. It does not feel like it's been an hour. Um, any closing thoughts you have for us? You don't have to. That sounded really ominous.
No, that's not a problem. I appreciate the questions. I definitely remember what it was like being at this stage of my career early on, and it definitely feels like a lot of unknown, and you're really eager to just get your foot in the door, and you can do it, you can prove yourself. But I would say, be a little bit patient with yourself, give yourself that time. It sounds like all these folks who have asked questions, you're all taking the right steps. You're thinking about the right things. Just keep working at it and give it time, and you'll be in working as an actuary at some point if that's what you're meant to do, and if that's what you'd like to do. So just best of luck to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day. And it's Friday, so I hope you all have a great weekend as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brianna.
Yep.